Morning, and thank you for joining me for today's OBX Wave Report. I am from my local computer today because we are going to look at some weather and climate information. In particularly, we're going to look at an Atlantic Ocean forecast for December, which is very interesting. And I also am testing out different platforms for filming this live stream. So sometimes we'll live stream direct from my desk if it's going to be more informative, but oftentimes we're also going to be live streaming from various devices like iPhone cameras or maybe a GoPro or possibly even a drone. So but today we're just doing the boring usual thing. And but this is going to be good because I'll be able to check my Twitch and see if anyone has any questions. So let me go ahead and get that set up so I can look at my comments. Um, so yeah, so but for today, for let's see, it's November 19th, Saturday, November 19th. We're going to do our wave report for Jeannette's Pier again. Now, Jeannette's Pier is close to the location of my new home, which we're moving to in Manteo. So I'll be able to film live from Jeannette's Pier. So it's one of the reasons why the OBX Wave Report will include Jeannette's Pier every day because it's close to where your wave reporter, me, Robert Scribbler, is. And so today we'll be doing the wave report for Jeannette's Pier. We'll be doing, oops, hold on, sorry. I'm grabbing things on this map that I shouldn't be grabbing. We'll be going on down the coast to the south to Rodanthe and doing a wave report for the Rodanthe location. And then we'll be going around Hatteras Island, taking the left turn here to the west, crossing this little channel here and doing a wave report all the way from Ocracoke, just some basic wave conditions. But before I do that, I would also like to provide those of you who are just tuning in with a little explanation as to what the OBX Wave Report is. It is OBX waves, present conditions in the Outer Banks for waves and for surfers and for water sports. The OBX Wave Report will include beach lifestyle, and yesterday we did a little beach lifestyle segment on exercises to help maintain your surfing fitness during the cold months or during times when you're away from the beach. I know a lot of us like to surf and we're not at the beach all the time. So I hopefully helped you guys by providing a list of low, medium, and high impact exercises to help your body maintain the muscle memory for surfing. And this included some innovations on exercising to include modified planks, specifically modified to train your muscles for surfing, and a modified burpee that I called the squirty, which also is dedicated to training those muscles for surfing, particularly those muscles that you use as you paddle into a wave and take off and launch yourself down the face of the wave. So beach lifestyle in the outer OBX Wave Report, and weather and climate, and most importantly, having fun at the beach. So that's a brief overview for today. As I said before, we're going to do a little bit of weather and climate discussion because the weather picture, at least in the long range models, is looking a little intense for the North Atlantic and for the tropics in the North Atlantic in particular. But before we get into that, I like to go ahead and start our wave report. So for the location of Jeannette's Pier at 9:30 approximately in the morning this Saturday, the wave height, and Jeannette's Pier is right about, let's see, right about here on our map. I'll go ahead and zoom in a little closer. There we go. So you can see Jeannette's Pier right here on our map. And so there you go. Jeannette's Pier on our satellite map. The wave height is 1 to 2 feet. So pretty calm, knee to thigh height. The wave period is 9 seconds for the primary swell, which is about, on average, about 1.5 feet. And the secondary swell, which is a lot smaller, at 13 seconds. Wind speeds are out of the northwest, and they are just 5 miles per hour, so a very gentle offshore breeze coming in. At Jeannette's Pier, the air temperature is a cool and crisp 49 degrees Fahrenheit. So for those of you surfers who want to brave 49-degree air temperatures, that's what you got at Jeannette's Pier. The water temperature is rather warmer at 62 degrees Fahrenheit, but as many of you know, 62-degree water in the ocean is not warm, although it may feel warm relative to the air. So make sure you've got your cold weather protection set to the appropriate level given the conditions. The weather at Jeannette's Pier is sunny, hardly a cloud in the sky, clear conditions, and the expected high temperature for today at Jeannette's Pier is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, so not getting too much warmer. So heading on down the coast here to Rodanthe. We're gonna pass Coquina Beach and Oregon Inlet, Pea Island. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit just to show you some locations on the Outer Banks since we have our map available to us this morning. And so moving down to Rodanthe, which is one of my favorite surf locations on the Outer Banks. Just some really nice waves down there. At Rodanthe today, though, we just have 1 to 2 foot waves, so knee to thigh height again, similar wave conditions. The wave period is also 9 seconds for the primary swell and 13 seconds for the secondary swell at Rodanthe. The wind speed is wind speed and direction is out of the northwest at 10 miles per hour, so another offshore wind pattern here as well. And the air temperature is 54 degrees Fahrenheit, so a bit warmer than up in over up at in Nag's Head at Jeannette's Pier. And the ocean water temperature also a little bit warmer at 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, warm being a relative word here, you're going to want some cold water protection for your surf if you decide to brave the waves, brave those 1 to 2 foot waves at Rodanthe today. The weather in Rodanthe is sunny and as well, so very clear conditions. And the high today edges up to 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, not getting too much warmer than we already have at Rodanthe today. Now for our third location for our surf report on the Outer Banks, we are going to continue south. We are going to go past Avon and the Avon Fishing Pier and Diamond Shoals and the point here where our lighthouse recently got moved. And we're going to head on west past Hatteras Inlet and on to Ocracoke Island. And we'll just zoom in on the Ocracoke campground and Ocracoke Beach. And conditions at Ocracoke today on this south and southeast facing shore. The wave height's a little bit larger at a solid 2 feet, so nothing really to write home about, but a little bit consistently larger than the two more northerly beaches. The primary swell is at 9 seconds. We didn't get a secondary swell reading for this location. The wind speed and direction is 5 miles per hour out of the north, so because the beach is southeast facing, with a wind coming in from the north, that is also an offshore wind. The air temperature at Ocracoke is 54 degrees, so also pretty cool at this location. The water temperature, ocean water temperature is I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Correction. The air temperature is 51, so a little bit cooler actually than up in Rodanthe. And the ocean water temperature is 69 degrees Fahrenheit, so rather close to the 70-degree mark. I wouldn't say that's necessarily warm water, but it's rather warm for this time of year. And we'll be talking about water temperatures across the Atlantic for this time of year in a couple minutes. But overall conditions are still cool, so make sure you have your cold and cool weather protection available, set to your appropriate level, considering your fitness, resiliency to the cold, and I don't know, I guess age. Um, and the weather conditions are also sunny down in Ocracoke with an expected high today of 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So that concludes our basic overview of wave and weather conditions across the Outer Banks, selecting 3 locations for today. If you want more in-depth information about the surf conditions along the Outer Banks or anywhere else, I recommend you go to magicseaweed.com. Fantastic website for all the information you need for your surfing sessions, complete with beach cams and the whole 9 yards. So some great stuff over there at magicseaweed.com. All right, so moving on to the meat of our wave report for today. I want to zoom out here and talk about hurricanes. And you may be wondering why I'm talking about hurricanes in December. Why am I, or I'm sorry, right now it's November 19th, but I'm going to be talking about the potential for some hurricanes forming in late November and early December in the North Atlantic and in the tropical Atlantic. And what is this weird map that I've thrown up here um, for our first contextual reference? So this is a weather and climate data site, uh, weather and climate data site. It's wxmaps.org, and the particular maps that we are looking at here are actually, let's go ahead and refresh this because this one was from yesterday. Here we go. Um, the particular maps that we are looking at here are the potential minimum central pressure for storms, for tropical cyclones based on the ocean water temperature, the sea surface temperature. And the first map shows the potential in intensity in the form of minimal central pressure. So the lower the pressure, the stronger the storm. And pressure is measured in millibars of mercury. So in the higher end, you have your weaker storms. So your tropical storms. Tropical depressions are going to be in your upper range here, and then the tropical storms in through like your yellows and maybe into your oranges, although you might be transitioning into a hurricane depending on the storm. Um, Actually, your yellows might even be transitioning into a hurricane now that I look at it more closely. There we go. So yeah, yellow is a tropical storm, and then once you start to get into the orange, you're into your hurricane range. And with 880 millibars or lower being your most intense storms on Earth at present that are potential. So why is water temperature so crucial for hurricanes? Water temperature is the fuel, the base fuel that hurricanes feed on. Hurricanes and tropical cyclones are heat engines, and water evaporating off the surface of the ocean is what feeds them. And as the water evaporates, it creates convection, which is a lift in the air, and that lift powers the central engine of the hurricane. And the hotter the water, the more rapidly the water evaporates off the surface, the more lift you get in the air, and the more potential convection you get, which is what powers the storm. So in that 880 millibar range, you're looking at the most intense storms on the face of the Earth, your category fives at present. There's been some conjecture as to whether or not they would add a category six, because storms have lately been becoming more intense, particularly in certain regions of the world like the North Atlantic, as the ocean temperatures warm due to the overall warming of the Earth and ocean system due to primarily fossil fuel burning, which is trapping a lot more heat in the Earth system. So we're looking at the Atlantic Ocean right now, and there's still, as you can see on these maps, a lot of available fuel for tropical cyclones should they form. And I'm showing you now the second potential intensity map, this being maximum potential winds, which probably transfers more readily to as a context to most minds. I know it does to me. So as you can see, much of the North Atlantic is, at least in our latitudinal zone, is in the pink to purple range, which is enough to sustain a Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane should the atmospheric conditions allow. Now, at this time of year, wind shear tends to knock down formation of storms a lot more than in the months of September and October. But as we can see, the ocean water is providing the available fuel for these storms should they form. And looking to the south, the ocean water temperatures are enough to sustain, in many cases, the most powerful storms, the Category 5 storms. Um, so yeah, so wow, a lot of energy out there for potential hurricanes should they form. Now, why are we talking about this? Actually, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about ocean temperatures. And I actually think let's go ahead and look at just a direct ocean temperature map for the North Atlantic. Now this is I'm getting this information here from Earth Nullskull, which is a great it's a weather model based on the Global Forecast Systems model, the GFS model, and it's graphically displayed for the entire globe. So you can set it to display certain features such as ocean temperature, wind speed, waves. It's a great model, and it provides a pretty accurate account of what's going on at present in the Earth system, and provides the GFS model forecast, which we'll be talking about a little bit more later. But let's talk a little bit more about ocean temperatures so I can give you some indicators as to how warm the ocean is. And we did talk about how warm the ocean is right at near the shoreline, and I'm choosing a reference point that's pretty close to shore right now, showing about 62 degrees Fahrenheit water temperature, off of Nag's Head at this time, which correlates to the readings that we were getting at the local level. But if you just go a little bit offshore into the Gulf Stream, the water temperatures right off the Cape Hatteras and Outer Banks region pop up. I'm gonna go, yeah, there we go. Pop right up to 79 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty darn warm for this time of year. And we're going to talk a little bit about how warm that is. Moving further out into the Atlantic, you can see water temperatures that could support a hurricane level tropical cyclone in a pretty large swath across the Atlantic here. And then, of course, as we get down into the Caribbean, the water temperatures spike up quite a bit to the 80 degree Fahrenheit range. This particular zone here is the hot zone of water that helped to fuel Hurricane Ian, which recently had such far-reaching and devastating impacts for the U.S. East Coast and Florida. And of course, as you dive deeper into the Caribbean, you get water temperatures in the 84 to even 85 or near 85 degree Fahrenheit range. So how out of context are these water temperatures to what we would traditionally see? Um, well, we can answer that question by looking at the anomalies map. And in this anomalies map, we see that all the water temperatures near the eastern seaboard of the United States and the Gulf of Mexico, pretty much, except for some possible local cool spots, are rather warmer than normal. And let's see, so looking at this spot here that helped to spawn Ian, we find that water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico in this zone are, as much as almost 5 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And that provides a lot of extra fuel for storms. Going down into the Caribbean, we find spots in the range of about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. And these above normal temperatures might not sound like much, but just a slight variance to the hot end can really provide a lot of extra fuel for hurricanes, particularly when the above normal water temperatures are spread out over such a large period, such a large area. So you're getting all that extra evaporation coming off the ocean and providing that convection that can fuel those storms over a broad swath. But where my eye really turned in this anomaly map is up into the North Atlantic, where water temperatures are ranging between 3 and 4 degrees Fahrenheit over a very large region off the US southeast coast, and then up toward a region off the US northeast coast where water temperatures are in the range of, well, let's see, between 9 and 14 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. Now, this zone here tends to be cooler, as is influenced by a tongue of the Labrador Current, which comes down from Baffin Bay and Greenland over here past Newfoundland, and then cuts in off the northeast coast, and a tongue of which trickles all the way down to the right off the Outer Banks. So off the Outer Banks, we get a confluence of the Gulf Stream running north and bringing its warm water, and the Labrador Current coming down south, bringing its cool water. And what I see here is that both the northern tongue of the Gulf Stream, for the most part, and the southern tongue of the Labrador Current are much, much warmer than normal for this time of year. So a lot of moisture, a lot more moisture in the air as a result of that warm water for this time of year than would typically be available, and that's storm fuel. All right, so why are we talking about all this in the context of our wave report? In large part, if you live in the Outer Banks or anywhere on the East Coast, you know that the wave conditions, and this is true for most of the rest of the world. I mean, there are some locations that just get good, consistent surf because of prevailing weather conditions. But for the most part, waves in the Outer Banks are fueled by storms in the North Atlantic. And if there's a storm pretty much anywhere out there in the North Atlantic, uh, in, like, say, for example, this zone, it's not like up off of Greenland or Iceland, it's going to produce a swell that'll eventually likely hit the Outer Banks. And what we're looking at here is a global forecast system, or GFS map, um, for December. Let's see, I think this is December 3rd, December 4th. So this model is running conditions, present conditions, and extrapolating what the weather may be in the long term, medium to long term, meaning days and weeks, based on present weather conditions, conditions such as ocean temperature, which we were talking about, and how much warmer those ocean conditions are than normal. And what we've been seeing over the past few days in the long range forecast from the global forecast system model is these rather powerful storms popping up in the forecast for late November and early December. And I've just taken this screenshot here to show you an example. Now, at the longer range, global forecast system models tend to be a lot less accurate. So you can take this forecast with a big grain of salt. But the fact that the model keeps spitting out storms in the late November and early December timeframe is notable because it shows a tendency in the model for more stormy conditions. So it seems like we may be looking at a stormy Atlantic in late November and early December. And in particular, the models are pointing to a potential for hurricane formation in the North Atlantic during that time frame. Now, this particular model run produced a 948 millibar storm, which is an extraordinarily powerful storm in the Caribbean on December 4th. And 948 millibars is, let's look at our maximum potential hurricane intensity. 948 falls in this range here, and the darker orange range. Um, so for minimum central pressure, and would tend to roughly correlate between a category 3 and maybe a really strong category 2. Maybe sometimes if it's a smaller storm, might be up to a category 4 hurricane, but a very strong hurricane for this time of year forecast in the long range forecast to form in the Caribbean. And out here in the North Atlantic, we have a 982 millibar storm, and that's given the features in this storm does not appear to be a tropical cyclones type storm. It looks more like a nor'easter style storm for the North Atlantic, which would be more typical for this time of year. But even a 982 millibar storm is pretty potent. So two large wave makers for the North Atlantic forecast for early December. And again, these forecasts are very in this particular model. And these forecasts are not considered to be accurate at this time. The reason why I'm pulling it up is to give you guys an idea of what the wave conditions may be like for the Outer Banks, but also just to provide a little bit of climate context, because we do intend to have a number of shows focusing on climate for the Outer Banks, because the Outer Banks is one of the regions most impacted by climate, and this has a big effect on anyone who lives on the beach, particularly and surfers as well, because we like to ride waves, and storms affect waves as they also affect our living conditions if we are living near the coast or traveling frequently to the coast. So one last point before I conclude our OBX Wave Report for the 19th of November. Um, so the weather forecasters over the past couple of years have noted that a lot of hurricanes have formed before the hurricane season starts in June. And they were considering rolling the hurricane season back into May or possibly mid-May. And if storms also more frequently continue to form as is indicated in this model here as a potential in December, they might also have to be looking at extending hurricane season into December or into the latter part of the year. That's not anywhere in my bailiwick. I am just a reporter and observer, and I'm just giving you some information based on the chatter that I've seen online in the weather expert community and climate expert community. So something to keep an eye on, definitely, as a surfer, as someone who lives on the beach, because boy, do those storms have an impact on our lives. So thank you for joining the OBX Wave Report for November 19th, Saturday, November 19th. And don't forget to do what you can to save our shores. I'll be signing off for now.